Oh, hi. I was just finishing up a book since I'm going to be talking to Jeremy Griffith today. I figured I'd better brush up on my Sandy Koufax history since his name is Los Angeles. Hey everyone. Hey David. Hey from Norway. That's nice. Yeah, I have a lot of Swedish friends. So I like the Northern Europeans. They're always very relaxed and mild-mannered, very different than me. That's why I respect them, right? So tonight we'll be talking with somebody I respect greatly. Jeremy Griffith. Does anybody here know Jeremy Griffith? Anybody? He's unbelievable. He's one of the best people in Magic. I consider Jeremy an ambassador for Magic. He holds the weekly meetup in Orange County in Southern California, if you're a part of it, where you can go and you can sit and talk to people about cardistry, magic, coin magic, whatever you have in mind. You know, Jeremy's such a gracious host. Absolutely a gracious host. So let's talk to Jeremy Griffith right now. I'm really excited to do this. Jeremy's coming in. Oh, you met him at Blackpool. Probably freezing, right? Hey, Jeremy Griffith here.
Hey,
So
buddy.
good to see you.
Good to see you too. How the hell are you?
Oh, fantastic, man. I've been waiting for this forever. I consider you an ambassador of Magic, cards, and everything in between. So I want to give you your due and have everybody else get inspired.
Dude, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Hey, is that a Camaro?
No, this is just a Chevy Equinox. It's the family van.
I just saw the logo. My wife used to have like a 2010 Camaro.
Oh, like when they first muscled it out?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember those bad boys. Oh,
They were good.
Dude, who is it? Orbit. Orbit's got like a big, I think it's a Chevy. And he showed up to like one of those jams and he just revved it and everyone on the block knew he had shown up. Like, it was,
Oh, Chris?
yeah.
At MagicCon, I think it was 2012, he showed up and I didn't really know him, and he came over to me and he said, "Hey, I heard you have a Challenger." And I said, "Yeah, how do you know what kind of car I have?" He's like, "I'm real into Challengers. Can I see your car?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." He was real nice, real nice guy. But yeah, he had a Challenger, and I think I asked him a couple years ago, and he sold it. So he has a Chevy now.
Yeah, I think so. Things might have changed. It's been a while, but yeah, he's definitely into the muscle car kind of thing. So give me just a sec. I'm gonna set up a second tripod with the light just because
Yeah, of course.
correct. Give me just a
Well, look at this guy. He brings his own lighting. They should get him in Hollywood.
bit.
He can be in Sunset Boulevard Part 2. He's ready for his close-up.
There we go. Yeah. And I've got a twin brother, so that way you only have to pay me for half the time. I'm like an orphan twin.
What is it? My grandma's a twin, the Bucks and I, and then you. I just like twins.
You're surrounded by them. You just can't get away from us. We're trying to get you into the fold so we can clone you. That's what that is.
I think that either I was a twin and I ate the fetus in the womb, or that I'm just bipolar and I admire.
That first one would explain so much. It would just.
It would.
Oh, that's funny.
We were both supposed to be 5'2".
Yeah. But
Inside
instead you
double
came
drop.
out 6'13" and having eaten your sibling.
That's right.
Oh, that's great.
So, Jeremy, you're from my hometown of Santa Ana, California.
That's right. Yeah.
And Jeremy and I must be, when I met Jeremy and talked to him, I said, "You're from Santa Ana? Are you kidding? Really?" I mean, I had never met anybody, especially I didn't know there was this magic community. We have Obed, from Santa Ana, who's a card collector. We have Hugo, who is a card collector, and then we have you. But then if you live in Santa Ana, you would never know that there was anything to do with magic in the city.
Yeah, nothing. There was nothing. And I remember, growing up there, like we had the magic club inside my junior high, and then that's where it stopped. You had the Orange County Magic Club, but even then there was nothing like card related in particular, especially back then. So yeah, it's sort of weird. Like we basically were across the street from each other because I was in the Bradfords. I was just across the way from you. Yeah. Right? Because you were across the way over in Sandpoint? Where were you?
I started off in Aspen Village, then I moved to Woodside Village, and then Village Walk.
Okay, yeah, that's right. You hopped through villages. I forgot about that.
All on that rate and that rate area, MacArthur. Right in by South Coast Plaza. That was my area.
There we go. Okay, now we can see me. There we are.
So what got you interested in magic? Was it being a twin? Did you like tricking people? Was it doubles? What was it?
I don't know. The like I got the magic set, and I used to say that was the start, but you kind of got to have the feel for it before like a magic set, because lots of kids get magic sets, you know, and it just doesn't take. Um, but I wanted to be a superhero. I really did. I just, you know, I swore to myself I'd figure out some superpower that I could have, and magic was the closest thing I could come. You know, I had an overactive imagination as a kid, swore I was going to run away to the circus, rode a unicycle to and from school all through the 7th grade.
Are
I
you
was that
kidding?
dead, no, dead serious. I used to still catch hell for it, but yeah, I really wanted to run away to the circus. I wanted to like go be part of Cirque or whatever. I didn't care. I wanted to do that, and I always felt like magic and circus was always going to be a thing. Um, but then my twin started to get into cards, and I was very much into like other props and everything. And I saw Maverick, and I thought, oh man, I really want to handle cards now. And so I asked my twin brother to teach me cards, and he did. He taught me what he knew, and then it felt like the bug never stopped biting me. I just kept running with it because I loved that you could like carry this with you and have an entire show. Like you were ready to go. There was no heavy props, no doves, no animals, no, you know, extra things. You didn't even need gimmicks. You could just use a regular deck of cards and you could do some amazing stuff with it, you know?
What
So
age was this?
I was probably about, I'd say 11 or 12, probably 11, because it was right as I started to get into junior high. I got my first magic set when I was 7. And I kept that sucker forever. It was the Mark Wilson Complete Course in Magic, the big guy. And I had like this janky art kit that I had also gotten that year. And I dumped all the stuff out of the art kit and threw a bunch of magic stuff and that book inside the like briefcase that came with the art kit. And I wrote, you know, Magic Jeremy on the front in big Sharpie. And I carried that with me everywhere I went, like embarrassingly into every Olive Garden that we ever went to as children.
Oh, of
And
course, Olive Garden.
yeah, naturally. And yeah, it never went away. And then I dropped out of it completely. I did magic camp. I did the junior program, and I was solid into it until about 22, and then I just kind of burned out.
Okay.
And then yeah, I came back into it when I was 30, and same thing. Bug never stopped biting. I just kept chasing it. And what's funny is once I got back into it, I saw way more success with it, and a lot more. I felt like I was a lot more creative. Maybe because I had life experience, I don't know. But from like 30 until now, I'm 37. I've had way more fun doing it now than I ever did all those years combined, because this is, you know, I'm doing it for the love of the game. I'm not doing it to try to like get food, you know.
Yeah,
So
that was when I was in college. You know, the script teacher, he said, none of you are going to write a good script because you've had no life. And we all said, oh, screw you.
yeah, screw you. I've
We've done
read.
everything. We're 20 years old. We've seen it all. And he said, nope, you haven't lived. You won't write a great script at 20. And, you know, most of the scripts you would read in college all had like the same story. There was like 3 student films, you know, like 3 student film types that you could see. It was like a relationship gone wrong. It was all like, you know, just like breaking up with a girlfriend. Really, that was what all people
Yeah,
wrote
that's
about.
everything. Yeah, or getting rejected from college or something like that,
Yes.
or dropping out of school.
Oh, writer's
Yeah.
block. The #1 movie in college was written about writer's block, and you would read it, and I would be like, "Oh, it's another writer's block, you know, script." Maybe because the teacher was right and nobody knew shit.
And no one has any life experience, so it's all Hallmark cards. That's
Yeah,
pretty much, yeah.
but why do you think you had this innate interest in like a circus or the oddities? I mean, did you come from like kind of a regular family and you didn't like that, or was your family weird?
No, my family's weird. Like everyone has something, you know, like my dad, I didn't even realize at the time, was a magic assistant when he was growing up. Like that was one of 18 jobs that he had. And he, you know, helped my grandparents run a leather shop. He could like cut coins, you know, like cut the background out of coins and everything. So he was like heavily involved in coins and coin handling and just all these other miscellaneous things. My big brother is an artist. He's a digital artist. He was one of the artists for the game The Last of Us 2. So
What's that?
the big like Sony release that just came out, my big brother is one of the artists for that video game.
Oh, it's a
And
video
then
game. Okay.
yeah, and then my twin brother learns things faster than I do, but I tend to go deeper than he does.
Oh,
So he'll pick something up to the point of proficiency and then drop it. But like he can do that with a number of things. But I'll pick like 4 or 5 things and I'll go way deep with them. But all the other stuff I'll get left behind on. So, he's a savant. He used to break dance. Like at one point he was like professional level break dancer all the way through high school. Yeah, at some point I'll post a video he sent me. Once he ticks me off enough, I'll post that video just to embarrass him. But he's still got it. He can still do all that. But
and you never got into that?
no, I tried. It didn't go as well. Like I said, I wanted to be a superhero. So gymnastics was more my thing, which explains the big neck. But
where was your grandparents' leather shop?
it was in Glendora.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was actually where my parents grew up. And I didn't realize my dad went to high school with Armando Lucero. So like crazy godfather of close-up magic and my dad were totally hanging out when they were kids. So I didn't.
Glendora, I only know 2 things. I know the Donut Man. And
yeah.
I know that, I think Tony Robbins was from Glendora.
I think you're right. Yeah. I think he was from like
the Hand Man.
Oh my God. Dude, I met him when I was in, I used to run Borders bookstore way back in the day out in Palm Springs.
Where was it?
It was out in Palm Springs, out in Palm Desert. And he came in, right? Because he had retreats and everything there. And he came in and he was just shopping for books. And I was helping him shop. And he's got that big ass booming voice that like you're not prepared for. And then you shake his hand and it's like shaking a bunch of bananas because he's, like taller than you and you're very tall.
Oh, he has the brain tumor that's pushing on his gland. So
the pituitary thing. Yeah. So he never stops. Yeah.
That's like Andre the Giant had that.
Did he? I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is that why Andre had all the like health stuff during filming for Princess Bride?
Yeah, where he couldn't even lift the princess up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a constant. A doctor had finally told him in like his 30s that, hey, you have this gigantism, and he said no, and I don't want to know about it. And they said, well, we can stop the hormone from secreting, and he said, no, I don't want to listen to it. And he rejected all treatment. He was dead at 43, but Tony Robbins is still with us.
Yeah. Apparently he's doing okay. Yeah, he's fine.
Now, what about the hand size magic debate? Because I used to always hear about Guy Hollingworth. Everyone used to always say, well, Guy can palm, Guy can do this because he has these huge hands. And now, I know Guy, and I've hung out with Guy, and my hand is a little bigger than Guy's. I can't do anything. I don't know what it has to do with it.
I think that it's important, but not as important as, I think it is true to a point, and after that, it's just a common excuse. Because I've seen people with small hands do amazing things.
There was a kid.
Dude, yeah, right. He's a tiny little fella. No, but you're like, guys who have either average size hands or smaller hands, I've watched them do incredible things that even I, like after years of doing this, couldn't follow suit. And the fact is that they put in the work. If it doesn't work the way that they would teach everyone else, they'll find their own way. So honestly, I think the main argument is persistence. Persistence and creativity, I think, are far more important than hand size.
I agree with that. Who are your favorite magicians, Jeremy?
Oh, see, that list could go for a while. I love the way that Babel handles cards. I love the way conceptually Helder puts together things. I love the personality of Steve Valentine. I wish I was a god of misdirection like Garrett Thomas, but I appreciate aspects of each person. Like as far as like an all-around performer, I would probably say, like if we were talking technical prowess, Helder, and if we were talking just genuine personality, it's Steve Valentine.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is it about Valentine you like so much?
That dude puts his heart into it. Like you've seen Helder perform, and Helder tells an incredibly deep and moving story. And I thought he was the only person that did that, right? But then I got to see Steve's show, and it was his one-man show, just this little out in Studio City, tiny little black box theater, and I was mesmerized. I went to go see that show 4 times,
When was that?
that was, God, it must have been 2, 3 years ago, something like that. Because I remember it was right as Vitreous came out. And that's actually got to be closer to 4 years ago. And he's a professional actor. So the guy can infuse everything with emotion, and he can tell stories. So I'm watching him in this little theater and I'm in tears. I'm laughing my head off. The magic is great. His performance is better, so that the magic is incidental. You're just watching a man tell his story and how he fell out of love with magic and how he came back into it. And all the while he's infusing it with, effects. And it was great. It was a blast.
Now, speaking of that, how you're looking for something to identify with. So you fell out of magic, you went back to magic. So you have that kind of in with Valentine's show.
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of, I know you're a man of faith, and then you have like a Darren Brown. How do you look at it differently than I know that, a lot of, I think now, I remember what was Guy Hollingworth's quote, the writing about Darren Brown, where he said, I wish Darren would get back to magic and stop with this nonsense. I think that was one of the quotes on Darren Brown, where I think he tries to convince you that religion is mind control, or, that's the basis of the show.
Yeah. I think, there is just enough evidence to make both stories plausible. Mm-hmm. And I think it has more to do with who you are and where you're from than what you're going through. And, from where he's at, he looks at everything from the aspect of, like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Carl Sagan would look up at the universe and say that the universe is mysterious enough without having to imagine a creator, right?
deGrasse Tyson's quote was, "I'm sick of God."
Yeah. Yeah, in which case, and for him, God is an easy out, right? God is an easy out for the mysteries that we still haven't figured out, right? Same thing with Bill Nye and all these other guys. And they've also watched religion turn into something malicious, which I completely understand. Now, I came to a different conclusion. It doesn't nullify what they believe. I'm not trying to diminish what it is that they're saying. What I'm saying is that I've watched atheism belittle people too, and I've watched the question stop at how and never move to why, and I want to know why. So that's what
I don't know that science can answer why.
I don't think it's not built to. It's observation. It's inherently built on what am I thinking? Not iterative. Empiricism. Right? It's based on what you can see. And the only one that is based on what you can't see, right? String theory, they're always bickering at each other of you can't prove any of this because you can't see any of it. And they're like, well, you can't, see what you can't prove, all that other stuff. And I think that the world is bigger than what we can see.
Absolutely. Well, you got to think about this. I mean, I think every generation, whether you're talking about magic, religion, politics, every generation thought that they knew everything. But then, 100 years later, you look at medical science. So if you have a toothache, I'm going to take you in my garage, get you drunk, get some pliers, and rip your tooth out. That was medical science. That was as far as it was going to go. Now we say it's barbaric. So all I know is that in 100 years, everything looks kind of silly. Or not everything, but most things. Or some people you look back, you're like, wow, they were smarter than you think.
Yeah. The C.S. Lewis talks about that. He goes, we look at Neanderthals and we think, oh, well, what a bunch of cavemen. And, they must have been barbarians who, strike their women across the head and drag them into caves and everything. And it's the only thing that we can tell from cave paintings is that cavemen were artists by trade. Right. And so we think about all these older people, and yet our philosophies are built on them age after age after age. There's so much of it that sticks around that they don't get credit for. We assume that it was our ideas, and yet we find them in Aristotle or something like that. And we always assume, oh, they're stupid, but look how far they came without microscopes. Look how far they came without telescopes or anything like that, just based on sheer extrapolation.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the past doesn't get nearly enough credit,
Absolutely. It's I remember I'm getting old enough now to where I remember the old guard of magic, and I remember going with Dave Buck to the Magic Castle almost 20 years ago.
Okay.
And when we would walk in, I mean, he was heckled. Like you'd have all these old guys sitting in there, you know, with their martinis, and they would just be like, "Oh, there's the juggler. There's the this."
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And then,
yeah.
you know, now that wouldn't happen. I mean, a lot of those old guys have moved on. They're no longer with us. But then also it's like now one day Dave will be, the older guy, and what's coming next?
Yeah, yeah, that's the thing. And that's the kind of paradox. Like if you could imagine what's coming next, then it would have already been here. You know, like
Absolutely.
it's one of those things I've hell, even on Instagram, you know, seven years in Instagram, I'm the old guard on Instagram. I'm definitely on the older side of it. You watch some of these new guys coming out with stuff. You know, I watch guys creating entire magic effects using stop motion, and I just want to be them when I grow up. You know, I watch kids handling hot dogs better than I will ever handle cards. And I just want to be them when I grow up, you know. Um, and I love that though. I love having my ass kicked by some 12-year-old who just flat out put in more work. Yes, obviously there must be talent there. Fine, whatever. Yeah, there must be genius. Genius takes work. No one wakes up knowing how to do this stuff,
That's true.
you know? So I say more power to them. Yeah, kick my ass.
And,
Go for it.
and now, Dan and Dave always told me, they always said, like when we would look at like the customer receipts or, we were like at the warehouse, they would always say, it's all just kids. It's all 13, 14. Then they graduate high school. They get a girlfriend. They leave Magic. And then they come back when they get a job after college. And it sounds like your story. What I want to know about that is, how do you find the intensity and time to practice now with a real life, a wife, a home?
Yeah,
How do you,
kids
how do you
and all
do it?
that.
Yeah.
Um,
Because, I mean, you're
it's
amazing. I mean, you're absolutely amazing. And when I would watch
Thanks.
you at the card meetups and see what you were doing, you have a real intense focus to where, you're budgeting time, and you would meet up with Ron Conley, who I want to talk about more later because I love
Okay.
Ron Conley. But I would see you almost like you were budgeting these times, and you really put all of your energy into, you really lived in the present. I know that sounds, cliche, but I saw you really attack it like that. But how do you get into that mindset when you have, a life?
Uh, you, it's sort of like how you finish a long book. You just always have it with you. So if you're ever just sitting down for coffee, read a page, things like that. I did when Carrie and I first got going, I really did have the time to like bear down, and I had 25 years of experience before that with cards. So a lot of it was muscle memory. Um, but then the really, really hard stuff that I started to do, that was squeezing in wherever I could. Just any time when Ollie was born, the second he went down and Carrie went down to like go do her Starbucks thing early in the morning, I was up until 2 a.m. filming. That's what all those videos were on Instagram. Those were practice sessions, for 3-4 hour practice sessions. And if I came across a cool idea, if it was something I felt like I had the chops for, I'd chase it. And then if I got it, if I could get it over and over and over again, that's when I'd film it. And then I'd just compile those and then crunch them down into 1 minute, and that became the video I'd upload.
But how would you get rid of distractions? Because most people, when the kids are in bed or when your wife's, gone or this, your first, instinct for most people is, hey, I'm going to play some video games. I'm going to watch TV. How do you maintain the discipline to let me actually work on something?
I think I had to cop to this, which is the difference between the person we think we are and the person we actually are. There's so many things that I say are important to me, and yet I don't take action on them on a daily basis. And I think we can safely say that after a while, after several years of saying that to yourself, you have a choice. You can either keep chasing it and pretend like it's important to you without actually taking action on it, or cop to the fact that it isn't important enough to you right now to be overtaken by other things in your life and just let it go.
Wow.
And what's funny is the second that I let it go, that's when it chased me back. And that's when I knew, okay, I gotta keep going with it. Because
wait. You kind of said like, hey, I'm not really going to dedicate much to this. I got to kind of put the cards away. And then that bothered you?
Yeah. Yeah. Like it was something that I felt like I still had more in me, and I really I still wanted to create. I still wanted to interact. I mean, this community gave me so much so fast. It sent me all over the world. I've got people that I now call family sitting in other countries that I never would have met. I'd never have any reason to interact with these people. And now they're some of my nearest and dearest. And if that's all I had, and it took me to, keeping my chops up in order to keep having the opportunity to like meet up with these people, then I'd do that. That alone would be worth it. But if I still got to like create a deck now and again, or release something cool with someone really beastie, that's even better, all the better. And I got to do it slower now, 2 little ones and everything, COVID, everything that's going on. Obviously I got to like shave the time wherever I can. Sometimes it's just 15 minutes a day or 30 minutes a day or something like that. But there's always a deck somewhere near me, no matter what. That's the one thing that I said, no matter what, there's always a deck. Like if you're going to read a thick book, it doesn't help if you don't have like the thick book or a Kindle or whatever around you, because when you do have the opportunity and then you don't have the tools, then you're just as stuck as if you didn't care,
So are you like a time budgeter? Do you make lists? Do you have a planner going?
I do bullet journaling, which I felt was...
What's that?
Bullet journaling. So there's this guy, writer, who created this kind of analog system for the digital world. And there's a 4-minute YouTube video that you could watch that explains the basic concept. But essentially you just take a blank journal and you turn it into whatever it is that you need to do. You make it your second brain. And because your brain is honestly, it's better at processing than memory. But if you're constantly trying to remember what you had to do and all the things that you had flying through your head and everything, you're not actually processing and honing down on anything. So I started doing that. Anything that came to my brain, any ideas, anything scheduling, anything that someone said to me that I knew I wasn't going to remember, it went in the bullet journal. And it just starts off as a single bullet. And then you decide what to do with it later, right?
Wow.
You could, organize it, turn it into a contact, turn it into whatever. But there's plenty of digital systems out there that will largely do the same thing. It's just I'm very tactile. So it made sense for me to do it analog, like longhand, because then I was interacting with something physically. It was easier for me to remember.
It makes sense because I wasn't a great high school student. I went to like Valley High School, which
Yeah, man.
be a good student. So,
Right.
But once I got to USC, I knew that I was in over my head. And I went to the first lecture and I said, I need to really, step up here.
Okay.
And so what I developed this system where I would get, 3x5 index cards.
Yeah. Okay.
And,
all right.
I would keep a pack in my backpack. And every day I would take one and when I would get out of my car in the morning at the parking garage, I would fold it in half and put it in my pocket. And I would put a pen. I always have a pocket shirt there. And as the day went on, I would write down, like what homework was due and what I had to do. And then I would fold it up and put it in my pocket. And I hated the feeling I don't like things in my pocket. So I hated the feeling of it in my pocket. And I couldn't take it out until I had crossed off everything on the list. And I stopped doing that, and I noticed that I need to start doing it again. That's why I'm really interested in your productivity.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Yeah. This one, like I said, I'm not great about digital systems. There's a great book, Atomic Habits. Everyone needs to read this book.
Atomic Habits?
Atomic Habits, because it's like if you took 15 different books on habits and structure and how to like do the things you care about, take those 15 books and condense it into one book, that's Atomic Habits, right? And one of the big things that he talks about is that sometimes the tracking and the process that you use, there's too much inertia. There's too high a price, right? With you, it was just like an index card, which is easy, right? It bothers you, but it's something easy that you can do, right? There are some things where it's like, oh, like habit trackers, and you got to write stuff down and you got to put a little smiley face on what is my mood today and everything. Like, hell, I think I've got, yeah, here you go. Like this is a progress journal, but this is like every single day filling that out. I don't have time for that because I have an 11-month-old who's crying and he cares far more about what I'm doing than this thing does. So I got to move on that. But bullet journaling, it's that big for every day. And then if there's something that you need to get off your head that's going to happen in a week, you can put it in the weekly calendar. If it's a month away, you put it in the future log. If it's a list, if it's not even anything that you got to move on today, you put it at the end under collections. But like I said, you can find that video. Just look up bullet journaling in YouTube, and that's the first video that comes up every time. And I think it's actually 7 minutes long. It changed me. Like that was what gave me like a second brain.
So bullet journaling is for everybody out there watching. I see, this Lonnie Dillon here said,
Lonnie.
bullet journal work is amazing. Yeah, I got to look into it. It's pretty interesting. Now let's talk about you again with organizing stuff, man. So you were the guy with the Mimi's meetup, and I never really heard. I heard about it. Maybe it was Brian Yu, who I have to thank. Just like you were saying about the community with magic, it's like I was always like a misfit. I was a skater, like
Right.
a counterculture guy. I liked Nirvana. Then when I got into guitars, I only liked the offset guitars, like the Fender Jag, the Jazzmaster. I've always been like a fringe guy.
Okay.
So of course, Dave Buck and I, just immediately
Oh,
like
you were
this.
brethren, like right
Yeah.
away. Yeah.
Because we were optimistic. We weren't like down negative guys, but we hated everything. So we
Right.
had to just get together and have a love fest over the few things we could like.
Okay. Okay.
And that's what I loved about the magic community was that everyone, like, I'm not a magician, but then like, I don't know, like I was because we fit in. Like a Rob Zabrecki and I are like, I'm like, holy shit, dude, how would I have ever met this guy if it weren't for the magic community?
Yeah.
And it's like we say, you talk to all these people like Kay, Izumi over in Japan. If I'm in Japan, I can go to coffee with him.
Right.
I would have never known. It's a fantastic community. And you organize this Mimi's meetup at Mimi's Cafe for anybody who's not local to Southern California. And you have people come from all over. And I remember the most charming moment I've seen in the magic community was when this boy was taken by his father to Mimi's, and he was into coin magic. And I remember listening to you, and you said to the father, "Oh, I'm sorry, we don't really have any coin people here. I know a little bit. I'm not really that great, but let me sit down with him and teach him something." And the boy sat down, and I remember like an hour went by, and you were doing all this crazy coin stuff, and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, he's not good, right?" But you really sat and you spent an hour to try to get him hooked on magic.
Yeah. Yeah. And because that's how I got it. I was young, and people who gave a damn invested in me, even if it was just an hour or two, and it changed everything. And I'm not saying like they don't have to, like you said, they might completely give it up. They get into high school, it's not cool anymore, whatever. They'll give it up. But there's that thing like that. Like you learn to think. I think that's why you get along with us so well, even if you're not actively a magician, is because you've got sort of like that magical thinking
Yes.
side. Like you love to play in the numinous. That's just who you are, right? That never leaves. Like anyone who has ever done magic, once that bug bites you, once you know that there's something behind the curtain, and that something behind the curtain could be just as amazing, even if you know the secret, I feel like that never stops affecting your life. So yeah, I'm obsessed with like giving that generation, like them and teenagers, something like that, because otherwise it's all cell phones and TikTok and
Absolutely.
I want something deeper for them.
And it's funny because I've met someone I've become close friends with through magic named Rue Clampett. He lives in
Okay.
South Carolina, and he got into magic, and he just contacted me out of the blue a couple years ago, and he was telling me, he said, "Hey, this is kind of a long shot, but I like your cards." And then we started talking, and he was saying, he's basically been verbally abused, like being new to the magic community. And I said, "Well, what do you mean? What are you talking about?" And he said, "I had paid for like some people I won't name, were doing like lessons. You could like buy an hour of a lesson thing, and then they were basically saying, 'Oh, that shuffle's terrible. Like that's you're never going to be able to do this.'" And he was telling me like certain things he had encountered, and I was like, "Wow." And then he said, "But Dennis Bear, like I contacted Dennis Bear, and he took like all this time writing me emails, telling me." Giving me pointers, and he said he really encouraged me.
Yeah.
So it just takes like one person. There's a lot of negative people in the magic world. Like if you
There
go to
are.
magic conventions, you get those real people like, "Oh, I've seen it before. This guy sucks. You'll never be." You get those people.
Yeah, they're salty. They're just salty.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah.
What was funny is when Dave and I first went to the Magic Castle, before we walked in, we had never been in. Dave had never been in. We were walking in, and Dave said, "They're all going to be drinking." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because all magicians are alcoholics." And I remember, I was like 22, and I'd never even tasted a drink. And we walked in, and of course, the group of like the Negative Nelly guys that were like, "Here's the juggler." They all had like 10 martinis, and I'm like, "How did Dave know?"
He just knows. He just
Yep.
like, yeah. Well, it's true. Like, and I mean, I can attest to the alcoholism, but I feel like it's one of two things. It's either it's either because the best jams I have ever had were in a British pub, or it's because, you're chasing away the demon of like, there's still that thing of like, oh, you're just a kid playing pretend, right? And it's hard to float that line. Like, you really got to be super into yourself to pull off like the Max Maven eyebrow, like to try to convince people that you are that mysterious. That's one of the things I have to respect about Darren Brown, is he takes the piss out of himself every time he does this. He is the first person to say, this is not mysterious, right? This is process, executed tenfold ahead of where you are, right? But it's not, I do not have special powers, right? But there are people who they do. They want to convince by hook or by crook or by personality. They want to like convince you that they are, like this mysterious person. And then you meet them and they're like, hi, my name's Jeff. And it's like, I knew it. Yeah. But I don't want to I don't want to downplay the need for that, because I know for some people that's all they got. But if you ever become the old guard and you're still that, it hurts. That's got to be painful, because none of the kids still think you're mysterious. You're just the guy walking around with a white beard pretending to be Gandalf. It's tough. That's hard. Whereas that's one of the reasons why I love to go over to the UK, is because you sit down with these guys and they've been taking the piss out of each other since they were teenagers. That's so you sit down. Yeah, that really is. And you watch, they don't take themselves so seriously. So when they do become the old guard, all the young bucks still want to earn the seat at the table. They still want to hang with these guys, even if it's just to have a beer, even if it's just to sit down and hear the stories. In American culture, I feel like it's different. It really is you either better still be coming out with stuff that I give a damn about, and it better be in download form in a way that I can watch on my cell phone, or I don't care.
That's absolutely true. What's his name? Frost. Is it Andrew Frost?
Andrew, yes. Yeah.
He was at Mimi's and he was blowing my mind. I mean, he was amazing doing this stuff. And I said to him, "Oh, you're from England. Have you talked to Guy Hollingworth?" And he's like, "Oh, no, I could never really talk. I could never talk to Guy."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Well, no, he's really friendly. He's not, he's not a pretentious person at all." And he's like, "No, I've been around him, but I didn't have the nerve to kind of talk to him."
Yeah.
I'm like, "You're missing out, dude. He would really appreciate, what you're doing."
Yeah. Well, okay. So funny story. I actually just paid for lessons with him, and
for Andrew.
Yeah.
Oh, he's top notch.
I love the way he handles cards. Like I said, if I want to be him when I grow up, then I'll pay the price. That's fine. I don't care,
And he's young. He's young, and
he is. And he hones down. He'll take one thing, call it the double lift, and he'll break that down to its bare atomic constituents and then rebuild it. And it's amazing to watch, right? And now he talks like he and Guy talk on the regular. He and Dennis Barrett. So now he's talking to them.
Oh, he talks to Guy now?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. And he's worked on Darren's stuff or at least in the periphery. And, now he's much more involved, but you can tell that guy earned his seat at the table. He absolutely worked his ass off, so that these guys likely came to him and said, "Hey, we've heard about you. Would you mind showing us something?" And then he did it for real. That's one of the big things that when people always ask, how do you break through? I feel like you really got to get busy just doing your own thing. Get busy. Don't get busy trying to be the next Steve 40. There's already a Steve 40, and there's 40 other people who are really, really good at copying Steve 40, right?
Steve 40 is one of those guys that I was at a diner at in Vegas, while Dan and Dave were talking to him. Mm-hmm. And just I've seen everyone in the world in front of me using cards. And when I saw Steve 40, that was real magic. And he wasn't doing anything to show off. He was just,
that's just him. Cards. Yeah, right. Yeah.
And a lot of people are amazing, but Steve 40 is real magic, in front of me. I'm producing a DVD with Dan and Dave, to do a trick online. I think that's what he was doing. And he's going to tell the secrets there. And it doesn't matter. I know nothing. He's amazing.
Yeah, he is. I always make that joke. He is the demigod of playing cards. He is better than you and the 10 best people you know about.
Yeah.
And what's funny is even now, you watch him, and this is something that like I always hear like Ron and Malik always say is that like even now he's still amazing, and they're like, oh, you should have seen him way back when. Like his hands are slow and he's still kicking your ass, you know? And it's true. Like even at his slowest, he's still better than you and the 10 best people you know about. Like he just is. And there's again, there's a lot going on there. There's a lot of practice. There's a lot of dedication. There's a honing down that I I don't know where he gets that level of focus, but he's got it. He's got it
So
and he's
what
kept it.
what is it though? Is it a need? Is it a need? Like it's your passion. Like you're paying now, or you're doing whatever for lessons from Andrew Frost. I mean, you're not trying to make it as a stage magician that I
Right.
know of, but
No.
it's just is it a need? Is it like if you don't complete it, you didn't accomplish a goal? Where does it come from? Where does the drive come from when you're not doing it for a money purpose?
I think that was where I found out what that bug actually was. Before I thought I wanted to be a successful magician, and that wasn't it. I am obsessed with the beautiful manipulation of playing cards. I just am. Not necessarily in the cardistry way, because I tried that and I couldn't chase it. I didn't have the passion for it, and I loved watching it happen instead of trying to make it happen. But the first time I saw someone like palm out a card and then still shuffle the deck and then get the card back on top, I was like, I didn't know that stuff like that was possible. And then chasing the sort of like quasi gambling and quasi magic and where they meet up, there was so much there. And there were so many like weird people who had mined there. I loved their personalities and I loved hanging out with them. But in a lot of cases, the only way you're going to get to hang out with them is to earn your seat at the table. You know, like there's a guy, Eddie McCall, out of Scotland, who to me is one of the most unsung people in the UK. He is amazing, right? And I wanted to sit with these guys. I wanted to like hear their story and everything. And I had heard about Eddie through a couple of the guys over here. And I just, I wanted to know him. So I went and sat down. And then it turned out that he knew about me because of the project I did with Conley. And so he and I sat down, and then I put Conley on the phone, like trying to prove like, oh my God, we actually got to meet. And then we sat there for an hour, and that was some of the finest card work that I've ever seen. And so same thing, like I paid everything for it to like get everything off that guy's website, anything that he was willing to teach. I was all about it because you could take his, what, 40, 50 years of experience and condense it down to what he found was essential. And you pay what, $20 for that download? Do it. What the hell? Why not? You know, it's that like you only have this much time on this planet. So you could either relearn all of that from scratch, or you can pay $20 for the download, or $50 to have that guy across from you on something like this. And it would be invaluable if you're willing to invest in it.
That continues on your theme of building from knowledge of the past. At least
Yeah.
you're very consistent.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, right. No, I'm not
Well,
just making that shit up.
there are so many people like I started going to your meetups, and then I saw Ron Conley, and he just looks cool. Like you just see him,
Yeah,
and you're
yeah.
like, okay, what's his story? You know, what's this guy's story? And then you start seeing Ron Conley, and you're like, oh, okay, he was Steve Forte's right-hand man. And then you talk to other people, about Steve Forte and Ron Conley. No one knows who Ron Conley is, and he's sitting at this Mimi's. And then after you keep going, you're like, he's a freaking legend. He's a Steve Forte, but probably a lot even more colorful stories. I mean, Ron Conley was running real clip joints in California and had a gaming license. I mean, in the '60s, or
Yeah.
it's just unbelievable. Oh, you got Doc's playing card wants to know, who was it again? Was it McCall?
Oh, Eddie McCall. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
is it McCall?
I think it's McColl.
COL. Okay.
Yeah, but he's got a shuffling project, a palming project, and a pass project that are all incredible. But the shuffling one is the thing that terrified me. I watched him do like a strip out shuffle that I could swear to you I saw both edges come in and nothing. I couldn't follow it. It was insane. So
That's Conley, dude. I mean, Conley, if anybody watches this and is like, who are they talking about? Ron Conley. And the sad thing is like you look up Ron Conley and it's like he's in like an old video with Steve Forte or something. I mean, there's still like he needs to be better documented because Ron Conley, as you know, I mean, you want to speak about your relationship.
yeah. I mean, like I received when I first And if we're going to talk about Ron Conley, we need to give due credit to David Malik, right? Because I wouldn't know Conley without Malik,
Sure.
right? So Malik is the guy who he was the protege of Tony Giorgio, right? The card man for the mob that sort of worked his way into Magic. And that's another one, right? You want to talk about like an unsung hero of the handling of cards. He was a salty bastard by the time he passed away, but he knew what the hell he was talking about because he had to do it for a living, right? And so Malik shows up, and I remember seeing a DVD about poker and how you could cheat at poker from David Malik from way back when. And I'm really good at spotting people's hands, right? Like I remember the patterns in people's hands and the way they handle cards. And so this guy, David, shows up to my jam back in like the first year of it. And we sit down and he compliments my shoes because I was wearing like old school high top Nikes and he used to love those. And then I'm watching him shuffle and I realized the shuffle is perfect. I was like, oh God. I was like, Malik? Is your last name Malik? He's like, yeah. I was like, why the hell didn't you say that? He's like, I didn't know I had to give my fucking last name. I was like, you don't, but I just, I'd like to know who the hell I'm sitting across from. I was like, I remember your DVD from, a couple of years ago. It was one of the ones that went into like the bitsy bitesy detail, right? Because he was all about like marking and all of that. And he owns all the like old secrets of like juicing and marking and all of that, right?
Like the old stripper machines.
Yeah. And so he's like one of the last guys who still remembers how all this stuff was made, right? And so then one day I've got Asad, right? The 52 cards is there with me. And this is the first time he and I have gotten to hang out like at my jam. And David Malik brings this old kind of fuddy-duddy looking guy, messy hair, crazy, Hawaiian shirt or whatever in. And he's like, this is my friend Ron. I've known him for years. He's not from Magic. He's more from the gambling protection side. And he starts doing, and there we go. I couldn't look away. I had to know like how it was. So I went out to go visit him once and I figured that was it. I figured that was going to be the end of the conversation. I got to see him, talk to him, learn a little bit, and then that was going to be it. And then it just kept happening. Like I kept showing up. And so for a solid, 4 years, I was there every single Saturday. We'd go to In-N-Out. We'd go to Starbucks, and then we'd talk shop. And then it got to the point where, I found out like we ended up talking theology more than we talked cards, or we'd talk about like photography. Oh, really? Yeah, because he's seriously like very, very, he has a deep faith, and it got him through really rough times. Yeah, right. But that's the thing. Like, that's why I think he's pulling the longest con I've ever seen, because you watch him and you can't see any of this on the surface. He's too good at hiding it. But like, he's got sort of that blase kind of like, kind of whatever. And the truth is, he could run the numbers faster than anything you've got going on.
Yeah,
that's just who he is. It's just innate to how he kind of came up in it. And actually, I just found out, like, I told him that I went to go visit my grandma out in Whittier. And he's like, where in Whittier? And I showed him. And he's like, so where your grandma lives? My childhood home is 4 doors down.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was like, so there's all these like weird connections. It's like when I found out that Dave Buck and I have the same cell phone number, except the last 4 digits are transposed in a different order.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hold on, you cut out there.
Hey.
I think Ron Conway's hitting your Wi-Fi over there. Hey, there you go.
From his iPad. There we go. Sorry about that.
Who, Ron is?
No, my 2-year-old son.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
I remember Ron telling me about like how hard it was to get a California gambling license, and he was telling me like about California's always been overly regulated, but it wasn't. So my childhood, I remember California not being heavily regulated, but then Ron's like, no, don't listen to that shit. We had to put up signs at the table that said you could lose money.
Yeah, Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, oh yeah, the government, we were running gambling rooms and we had to put up signs because they said it was unfair if someone lost. Like, you don't know you're going to lose your money sitting with us at a table.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like he's and what it takes to protect that. Like there's so many things that California, it's sort of like having a dirt biking license, like or licensing like a dirt bike and a four-wheeler out here in California, like any reason. It doesn't matter. Like a fairing is off. Like with them, anything. It could have been anything. Like the cards aren't the same stock that you ordered from this company, or your logo's off, or whatever. Like they were all bitsy bitesy reasons that, it could be a way by which you could steal people's money in an unfair gambling scam or something like that. So especially in California, it was really, really serious. It was serious business to make sure, which is why gambling protection was such a big deal. Because it just as much as California is looking for any reason to bother you, you've also got people like they can't play in Vegas, right? They're burned out there, and they're coming here and they got to run a scam, right? And that scam is going to involve three people. It's only going to happen once, and they're going to do it by collusion, which is super hard to track. And you got to be the guy who knows. You got to be the guy who can smell it from a mile away, and that's Ron. Right? Ron flat out is just at one point was considered the foremost expert on poker, because not only had he played it, professional level poker player, meaning that was how he earned his bread and butter from beginning to end. It wasn't a secondary income or anything like that. He had a bankroll and then he had a bank account, and they were separate things, right?
And that's a different kind of person too, because you're playing under the stress. You're not make-believing in your garage. I mean, this is a real deal.
Yeah. And you're not playing online, and you're not doing fake money. You have to keep your composure man to man in front of people, and you have to manage your emotions. If you lose, and you lose hard, and you lose to some punk kid, you got to take it on the chin and walk away, because you still have rent to pay, or you have a car payment or something like that. So having that experience and everything, having the real deal, and then going into gambling protection, I think that's what infused him and made him so good, is because he lived it. He knew something is off. Like, this isn't my experience going all these years in this game. This person's doing something that I've never seen anyone who was legit do. And he'd catch him. And then he's one of those guys that had that deal. Like, if he caught you, he'd give you the opportunity to teach him. And then there was like, okay, then we'll go a little easier on you. And I really think that's how he got so good. It's because he had so many of the people who were actually trying to cheat him at his casino show him what the real deal was. So anyway, there you go. Look up Ron Conley. He's worth it.
There's these guys out there, like Ron, and then Joe Porper. Joe Porper was another one for me, that I really connected with Joe. And Joe would have stories about, fighting with Di Vernon in his parking lot, and it was like, it just seems like magic isn't very well documented. You have Conley, you have Porper. I mean, they're just not known. I don't know that the young generation will care. I don't know. I mean, I just always feel like, man, someone should really, like, Joe Porper should have had a freaking hour and a half long documentary about him with card clips, billiards, his stories.
Well, and that's the thing. Everyone forgets the billiards thing. Like, Conley's probably more like, okay, yes, poker, but every once in a while he trails off on billiards. Like, oh, you were doing this. You were like, you probably earned a bit of coin doing billiards too, didn't you? And he's like, yeah, I love that stuff and everything. So he knew all about Joe's work. But
Conley did?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I always remember Conley. I can't remember anything else, that he said, but the best thing he ever said was, he was telling me about some party, like late night party that came back to like his apartment or someone else's. And then he was saying that there was girls there and there was cocaine. And then he looked over and his buddy had lit 3 cigarettes and didn't know that he had 3 in his mouth. And Conley said, hey, why do you have 3 there? And the guy said, oh. And he's like, that's what kind of party it was.
Yeah. But that's the other thing, is like, you can tell this guy like just scraped out by the skin of his teeth from a very much rougher era,
No, he's a film noir character, and my interest in film noir.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, when you talk to Conley, he was like, it's like you say, the greatest con of all time, because he comes off as kind of this, just normal old guy, and he's not. He's one of the last like remaining like L.A. noir guys, like of a James Ellroy novel.
Yeah. He really is. There's definitely a mystique that I don't think he gives himself credit for. That I'll give him credit for every day of the week. That I just think there's enough history there, and he's been all over the place, and he's been in it for so long, and so much of that has infused into his way of thinking and everything. Like, that guy is always looking for how people might con a situation. I don't care if it's like tacos at El Pollo Loco, like he is just going to find a way that someone would scam it, because that's how he had to think. He had to think, okay, how is this promotion at a poker table going to absolutely screw us out of money, right? How is this crew going to come in the middle of the night, on the late shift, and play us out so that we can't afford to keep open? Because that was his job, right? And so I think a lot of that. Also, he came up in an era where cheating was normal. Like, if you did a home game, you had to watch your ass. You really did, because someone's going to be running something, whether it's marked cards or something like that, and you can't let into it because you don't want to get your ass kicked. And there's so many other games that you have to run. I think that a lot of that infused in it too, and how he thinks that, yeah, he is almost like a caricature of someone from his era.
Yes.
But what's funny is that, like, okay, if you take all that away, take out the cards, take out the billiards, take out the gambling and everything, he's Ron to me. He's a dear friend. He's one of those guys that, like, when I was going through crazy times trying to figure out, like, I'm newly married, we're about to have a baby and everything, business is picking up, I need like a sense and semblance, like him and David Malik and a few people from the Jam. That was my sanity. These guys were just like, yeah, okay, we'd sit there and we'd shuffle, but the truth is, as we were shuffling, we were talking about real life issues. Like, what were we talking about? Like, when we met up, how long did it take us to jump from, oh, this is like cards and designs and everything, to, you have kids too? Oh my God, what do I have to like figure out?
Well, even more interestingly is, wow, you went to what high school?
Yeah. I know.
It's but that's the best thing about cards is the community.
Yeah.
Even when you used to go to like Magic Live, like I used to go to Magic Live in Vegas and stay at that horrible Orleans hotel with the broken, soda machine.
Everything with the broken everything. Yeah.
We used to go back to Chris Kenner's house, and they would be the strangest group of people, man. There was a ventriloquist one time who had some prostitutes with him, and then he was talking to the prostitutes with his dummy doll, and then I was trash talking the ventriloquist with the bucks. And I just, like, now that I'm older, I sit back and think, like, what the hell? I wish I would have soaked it in more. I mean, it was normal to me.
Right. Yeah. Like, you don't realize, because you're in it, you don't realize just how very weird this would be
to,
like, a normal human being. Like, like, you go to Kenner's and every once in a while, like, broad-shouldered David Copperfield will walk by, and then a guy who the only thing that he does is he cuts cards. That's it. That's the only thing that he does. But he's the best in the world, and Kenner is freaking out because this is the best guy, And Kenner finds them all. Kenner will pull them out of the woodwork. He just does, right? And they're all at that party at the end of Magic Live, right? Everyone showed up.
It's the best time of your life.
Yeah, it's like going to the after party at Cirque. It's the weirdest thing, but it's great. It's
so there's a minute left, Jeremy. Is there anything else you want to say in closing? Do you have anything coming out? Is there a book on Ron Conley for you, or anything?
No, I honestly, I'm trying to get Ron to do some stuff. I want to reach out to Eddie, see if he'd be willing to do anything with me. I really want to, release a few more things. So keep an eye out for that. And thank you for having me on, dude. It's been amazing seeing you.
Thank you for coming, Jeremy. Anybody out there who's watching this, Jeremy, is talking about the legends of gambling and table, everything. He's going to be the old guard one day. So pay attention to Jeremy, and then, we'll be telling stories in our wheelchairs in 60 years.
Yeah, when we lose all our hair. Oh, wait, never mind.
Why am I wearing a hat?
Yeah.
I can't reveal that.
You can't do it.